Jinho had always been a man of routine. Every morning he woke up at exactly 6 a.m. lunar time, ate the same bland protein bar for breakfast, and walked the short distance from his quarters to the observation deck of the moon-based Theta 7. Job as an astrophysicist wasn't glamorous. Most days were spent staring at screens filled with data points, analyzing cosmic radiation patterns, or cataloging asteroids that passed too close to Earth's orbit. But Jinho didn't mind. He liked the solitude. It gave him peace. The moon was quiet, save for the hum of machinery and the occasional crackle of static over the intercom. There were no distractions here, no people to complicate things. Just him, his work, and the endless expanse of stars outside the reinforced glass windows. For someone like Jinho, who preferred books to conversations and logic puzzles to parties, it was perfect. But on this particular day, something unusual happened. It started with a strange signal, a faint but persistent blip on one of the monitors. At first, Jinho thought it might be interference from solar flares or perhaps a malfunctioning sensor. But when he zoomed in on the readings, he realized it wasn't just random noise. This was something deliberate, rhythmic even, like a heartbeat pulsing through space. Intrigued, Jinho adjusted the telescope array to focus on the source of the signal. What he saw made his heart skip a beat. A large asteroid was drifting dangerously close to Earth's orbit. Its trajectory suggested it would pass harmlessly by, but there was something odd about its composition. Instead of rock or ice, the readings indicated traces of unknown metals and energy signatures unlike anything recorded before. Jinho's fingers flew across the keyboard as he ran simulations, trying to determine whether the object posed any threat. That's when everything changed. Without warning, the asteroid erupted into a brilliant flash of light. Alarms blared throughout the base as fragments shot off in all directions. One piece, however, broke away entirely and hurtled straight toward the moon. Jinho barely had time to react before impact shook the entire facility. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and emergency lights flickered to life. Clutching the edge of his desk to steady himself, Jinho stared out the window in stunned silence. Whatever had hit the moon wasn't natural. Recovery teams were dispatched almost immediately. But Jinho couldn't wait. Something deep inside him, the same curiosity that had driven him to become a scientist in the first place, urged him to investigate. Grabbing a flashlight and suiting up in his environmental gear, he stepped out onto the barren lunar surface. The crash site wasn't far, just a few kilometers away, but walking in low gravity felt surreal, each step bouncing him higher than expected. When he arrived, what he found took his breath away. In the center of a shallow crater lay a creature, unlike anything he'd ever imagined. It looked vaguely canine, with 4 legs and a long tail, but its body shimmered as if coated in liquid silver. Its fur seemed alive, shifting colors between shades of blue, green, and gold. 2 intelligent eyes glowed softly, watching him with an intensity that sent chills down his spine. Despite its otherworldly appearance, the creature radiated calmness, almost as if it understood Jinho better than he understood himself. Before Jinho could process what he was seeing, a voice echoed in his mind, not spoken aloud, but somehow transmitted directly into his thoughts. "Greetings, human," the voice said. "I am Keleth." Jinho stumbled backward, nearly dropping his flashlight. What? I mean you." "No harm," Keleth continued, its tone soothing yet firm. "I require assistance." Jinho blinked, struggling to form coherent words. You can talk." "In a manner of speaking," Keleth replied. "My species communicates telepathically. I have adapted my frequency to match your neural pathways, so we may converse." "Your species," Jinho repeated dumbly. His brain felt overloaded, struggling to reconcile the reality before him with everything he thought he knew about the universe. "Yes," Keleth said. "We are the Valerians, explorers of the cosmos. My vessel was damaged during our journey, forcing me to make an emergency landing here. You must help me repair it." For a moment, Jinho simply stood there, frozen. Then, slowly, his scientific instincts kicked in. Whatever this thing was, it was Reland. It needed help. And if helping meant unlocking answers to questions humanity had asked for centuries, how could he refuse? "Okay," Jinho said finally, his voice trembling slightly. "Tell me what you need." Keleth tilted its head, studying him intently. "First, I require shelter. My energy reserves are depleted, and exposure to this environment will weaken me further. Bring me to your habitat." Nodding mutely, Jinho approached cautiously. To his surprise, Keleth allowed him to guide it back to the base without resistance. As they walked side by side under the pale glow of Earth hanging overhead, Jinho couldn't shake the feeling that his life had just taken a turn he could never have anticipated. Jinho led Keleth into the moon-based Theta 7, his mind racing with questions. The alien canine walked gracefully beside him, its shimmering fur casting faint reflections on the metallic walls of the narrow corridors. Despite its imposing size larger than any Earth, Wolf Keleth moved silently, almost gliding across the floor. Jinho couldn't help but glance at it every few seconds, half expecting it to vanish like some kind of hallucination. When they reached the main lab, Jinho gestured for Keleth to settle down near the workstation. "You can rest here," he said awkwardly, unsure how to address an extraterrestrial being. "It's not exactly cozy, but it's safe." Keleth lowered itself onto the cold floor, curling into a loose circle. Its glowing eyes dimmed slightly, though they still watched Ginho intently. "Thank you, human," it replied telepathically. "Your assistance is appreciated." Sure," Ginho muttered, scratching the back of his neck. "But, why did you crash here? And what do you mean by repairing your ship?" Keleth hesitated before responding. "My vessel encountered unforeseen complications during our journey. A surge in energy disrupted our navigation systems, causing us to stray off course. By the time I stabilized the situation, we were already entering your solar system. The impact was unavoidable." "So you're saying this wasn't supposed to happen?" Ginho asked, pulling up a chair and sitting across from the creature. He leaned forward, curiosity overriding his initial shock. "What kind of technology are we talking about here? If you're so advanced, why didn't you just fix it yourself?" "My species relies on collective energy reserves," Keleth explained patiently. "Without access to those reserves, my abilities are limited. Additionally, certain components of my vessel require materials that may be rare or non-existent in this environment." Ginho frowned. "So you need help finding these materials?" "In part, yes," Keleth said. "But there is another matter I must discuss with you." "Oh," Ginho raised an eyebrow. "What now?" Keleth shifted slightly, its shimmering fur rippling as if disturbed by an invisible breeze. "Before the crash, I detected signs of life within me. Specifically, offspring." Ginho blinked. "Offspring? You mean puppies?" "Yes," Keleth confirmed. "In human terms, I am pregnant." For a moment, Ginho stared blankly at the alien. Then laughter bubbled out of him uncontrollably. Wait, hold on," he managed between chuckles. "You're telling me an alien dog from outer spaces having puppies? Right now, on the moon?" Keleth tilted its head, clearly unamused. "This is no laughing matter. Human pregnancy among my kind is both physically demanding and emotionally significant. I require support and preparation for their arrival." Jin wiped tears from his eyes, still giggling despite himself. Okay, sorry, it's just, wow, this day keeps getting weirder." His amusement faded quickly, however, when Keleth fixed him with a piercing gaze. "And that is where you come in." Jinho pointed at himself, suddenly alarmed. "What do I have to do with this?" "You are responsible for ensuring my safety and theirs," Keleth said firmly. "As my host, you will assist in gathering resources, maintaining optimal conditions, and preparing for the birth." Jinho groaned, burying his face in his hands. Why does this feel like the plot of a bad sci-fi movie? Despite his protests, Ginho knew there was no backing out now. Over the next several days, he threw himself into helping. Together, they analyzed data from the crash site to identify salvageable parts of the alien vessel. Jinho scavenged tools and equipment from the base's storage units, improvising solutions whenever necessary. Meanwhile, Keleth provided guidance, using its telepathic link to teach Jinho about Valian biology and technology. One evening, after hours of tinkering with a broken energy core, Ginho collapsed onto a nearby stool, exhausted. "This is insane," he muttered, rubbing his temples. "How am I supposed to build something I don't even understand?" "You adapt," Keleth said simply. "That is what humans excel at." Jinho sighed, glancing at the glowing panel they'd been working on. "Yeah, well, adapting usually doesn't involve raising alien puppies." To his surprise, Keleth let out a low rumblous sound that might have been laughter. "Perhaps not, but consider it an opportunity. Few humans have ever interacted with my kind, let alone witnessed the birth of our young. You should feel honored." "Honored," Ginho echoed dryly. "Right." Despite his grumbling, Ginho found himself growing attached to Keleth. The alien was surprisingly patient, answering his endless questions and sharing stories of its travels through the stars. In turn, Ginho opened up about his own life, his love for astronomy, his struggles with loneliness, and his dreams of exploring the universe beyond Earth. For the first time in years, he felt truly connected to someone or something. As the days passed, Keleth's pregnancy became more apparent. Its movements grew slower, and it spent long hours resting in the lab. Jinho adjusted the temperature controls to keep the room comfortable, brought extra blankets, and even played soft music to soothe the expectant mother. At night, he often stayed awake, reading about Valyrian customs and jotting down notes on how best to care for the newborns. One afternoon, while organizing supplies, Jinho noticed a small device blinking on one of the shelves. It looked vaguely familiar, though he couldn't recall seeing it before. Curious, he picked it up and examined it closely. "What's this?" he asked, holding it out for Keleth to see. The alien perked up instantly, its eyes widening. "Careful," it warned, sharply. "That is a communicator beacon. If activated, it could alert others of my vocation." "Others?" Jinho froze, dread settling in his stomach. "What kind of others?" Keleth hesitated before replying. "Not all members of my species share my peaceful intentions. Some view humans as primitive and unworthy of contact. They would see my presence here as a violation of protocol." "You mean there are other aliens coming?" Jinho asked, panic rising in his voice. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I did not wish to alarm you unnecessarily, Keleth admitted, but yes, if the beacon is triggered, they will come. And they may not be as understanding as I am. Jinho set the device down carefully, his hands trembling. Great, just great. So not only am I babysitting alien puppies, but now I've got intergalactic bounty hunters to worry about too. Keleth gave him a sympathetic look. Do not fear, Jinho. We will prepare together. As long as we remain vigilant, we can protect ourselves and the pups. Though reassured by Keleth's words, Jinho couldn't shake the feeling that their situation was about to get much more complicated. Little did he know, the challenges ahead would test him in ways he never imagined. The moon-based Theta 7 had never felt so alive or so tense. Jinho moved through the corridors with a sense of urgency, his mind racing as he juggled preparations for Keleth's impending delivery and the looming threat of hostile aliens. Every step echoed louder than usual in the otherwise quiet facility, amplifying his anxiety. He couldn't shake the image of that communicator beacon blinking ominously on the shelf, a silent reminder that danger could arrive at any moment. Keleth, meanwhile, remained calm despite the growing tension. Its shimmering fur now glowed faintly, with a soft golden hue, a sign of its pregnancy reaching its final stages. It spent most of its time curled up in the lab, occasionally rising to stretch or nudge Jinho gently when it needed something, though it rarely spoke unless necessary. Its presence alone was comforting, like having an ancient, wise companion who understood far more than it let on. Jinho wasn't sure how much time they had left before the pups arrived, but every day felt like borrowed time. He worked tirelessly, dividing his attention between repairing Keleth's damaged vessel and fortifying the base against potential intruders. During one particularly grueling session, he found himself muttering under his breath as he soldered wires together. "This is insane," he said aloud, shaking his head. "I'm an astrophysicist, not a mechanicore, a midwife." Keleth lifted its head lazily, its glowing eyes meeting his. "You are doing well, Jinho. Do not doubt yourself." "Easy for you to say," Jinho replied, wiping sweat from his brow. "You're not the one trying to figure out how to deliver alien puppies while dodging intergalactic bounty hunters." Keleth tilted its head thoughtfully. "Perhaps not. But I trust you," Jinho sighed, setting down his tools. Trust was nice, but it wouldn't stop whatever might come their way. Still, Keleth's confidence gave him a small boost. If nothing else, he knew he couldn't give up. Not now. As the days passed, Jinho began noticing subtle changes in Keleth's behavior. The alien seemed restless, pacing slowly around the lab and occasionally pausing to gaze out the reinforced glass windows at the desolate lunar landscape. One evening, Jinho approached cautiously, holding a tray of nutrient-rich food he'd prepared using supplies scavenged from the base. "Are you okay?" he asked softly, placing the tray near Keleth. "I am fine," Keleth replied, though its tone suggested otherwise. "The time approaches quickly. My energy wanes." Jinho knelt beside it, concern etched across his face. "Is there anything I can do? Anything you need?" Keleth hesitated before speaking. "There is a ritual among my kind. Before birth, we seek connection, not just with our young, but with those who stand by us. It strengthens us both, physically and spiritually." "A ritual," Jinho repeated uncertainly. "What does that involve?" "It requires touch," Keleth explained. "Your hands upon my fur will allow me to share my strength with you on yours with me." Jinho hesitated, unsure what to expect. Slowly, he extended a hand and placed it gently on Keleth's shimmering coat. At first, nothing happened. Then, warmth spread through his palm, followed by a strange sensation, a flood of emotions and images rushing into his mind. He saw flashes of distant stars, vast oceans of light, and countless worlds spinning silently in the void. He felt pride, its fear, and its deep love for the life growing inside it. Tears welled up in Jinho's eyes as the connection faded. "That was incredible," Keleth nodded slightly. "Thank you, Jinho. Your bond grows stronger." For the first time since this bizarre journey began, Jinho felt truly connected, not just to Keleth, but to something greater. Whatever happened next, he vowed to protect them all. Unfortunately, peace was short-lived. Late one night, Jinho was awoken by a sudden blaring alarm. Heart pounding, he scrambled out of bed and rushed to the control room. On the main screen, a blinking red dot indicated an incoming object rapidly approaching the moon. It wasn't debris or a natural asteroid, it was a ship. "They're here," Jinho whispered, dread sinking into his stomach. He hurried back to the lab, where Keleth was already alert. "They have come," it said grimly. "Prepare yourself." "Human, what do we do?" Jinho asked, panic creeping into his voice. "We're outnumbered, outgunned. We improvise." Keleth interrupted firmly. "You must activate the base's defense systems. I will hold them off if necessary." Jinho wanted to argue, but there was no time. He sprinted to the security station, frantically entering commands to arm the automated turrets stationed around the perimeter. Meanwhile, Keleth positioned itself near the entrance, its glowing eyes fixed on the horizon outside. Minutes later, the enemy ship landed with a deafening roar. A group of figures emerged, tall, sleek, and unmistakably veiled. Their fur was darker, almost black, and their eyes burned with cold intensity. They moved with purpose, scanning the area until their leader stepped forward. You have violated protocol, Keleth, the leader growled telepathically, its voice sharp and commanding. Surrender yourself, and we may spare the human. Keleth stood firm, its posture defensive yet regal. Leave this place. You have no authority here, the leader snarled, baring razor-sharp teeth. Then you leave us no choice. Before the situation could escalate further, Jinho activated the turrets. Beams of energy shot out, forcing the invaders to scatter. Chaos erupted as the automated defenses engaged, buying Jinho and Keleth precious time. We cannot stay here, Jinho shouted over the commotion. They'll overwhelm us eventually. Keleth turned to him, determination in its glowing eyes. There is one option. We flee to your planet, Earth. Jinho blinked in disbelief. But how? Your ship isn't ready yet. It does not need to be fully operational, Keleth replied. It only needs to get us close enough. From there, we rely on speed and stealth. Jinho hesitated, weighing the risks. Staying meant certain capture or worse. Fleeing offered a sliver of hope, however slim. Finally, he nodded. All right, let's do it. With adrenaline coursing through his veins, Jinho helped board the partially repaired vessel. As the engines roared to life, the enemy closed in, firing blasts of energy that shook the ground beneath them. Just as the attackers breached the base's outer walls, the ship lifted off, shooting into the sky. From the cockpit, Jinho watched the moon shrink behind them, relief washing over him. But their escape was far from over. Earth awaited on, with it, new challenges and dangers neither of them could foresee. The journey from the moon to Earth was anything but smooth. Keleth's damaged ship groaned under the strain of re-entry, its systems flickering erratically as it plummeted through Earth's atmosphere. Jinho gripped the edge of his seat, knuckles white, as flames licked the hull and alarms blared incessantly. Outside the cockpit window, the blue-green orb of Earth grew larger with each passing second, its beauty a stark contrast to the chaos unfolding inside the vessel. We're not going to make it, Jinho muttered, bracing himself for impact. Keleth, lying in the cramped space behind him, let out a low rumble that might have been laughter or maybe just exhaustion. Have faith, human. My kind has endured worse. Yeah, well I haven't, Jinho shot back, though there was no real heat in his words. Despite everything, he couldn't help but admire Keleth's calm demeanor. Even injured and pregnant, the alien radiated an unshakable confidence that somehow kept Jinho grounded. With a final jolt, the ship broke through the clouds and descended toward a dense forest below. Branches snapped and leaves scattered as the vessel crashed into the earth, skidding several meters before finally coming to a halt. For a moment, there was silence broken only by the hiss of steam escaping from the damaged engines. Jinho unbuckled himself slowly, every muscle in his body protesting as he climbed out of the wreckage. The air smelled fresh and earthy, a welcome change from the sterile environment of the moon base. Birds chirped in the distance, oblivious to the drama that had just unfolded. He took a deep breath, then turned back to check on Keleth. Are you okay? He asked, crouching beside the alien. I will survive, Keleth replied, though its voice sounded weaker than usual. It struggled to stand, wincing visibly as it moved. But we must act quickly. The others may follow. Jinho nodded grimly. They weren't safe yet, not by a long shot. Leaving Keleth leaning against a tree for support, he began inspecting the ship for usable supplies. Miraculously, some of their equipment had survived the crash intact. He salvaged what he could: a portable energy generator, medical kits, and a few tools, and stuffed them into a makeshift backpack. As he worked, Keleth watched him with glowing eyes. You are resourceful, Jinho. That is why I chose you. Chose me. Jinho paused, frowning. What do you mean? When my vessel first malfunctioned, I detected multiple landing sites. I selected yours because I sensed potential. In you? Jinho snorted, slinging the backpack over his shoulder. Great. So now I'm responsible for saving the galaxy or something. Keleth didn't answer, but its expression suggested amusement. By nightfall, they had set up camp in a small clearing, surrounded by towering trees. Jinho built a fire using dry wood and matches from his emergency kit while Keleth rested nearby, its shimmering fur blending eerily with the dancing flames. The warmth seemed to soothe the alien, and for the first time since their escape, Jinho allowed himself to relax. He sat cross-legged by the fire, staring into the flickering light. So, what's the plan now? He asked after a long silence. We can't exactly hide here forever. No, Keleth agreed. But Earth offers advantages. Its vastness provides cover, and your species' technology may aid us in repairing my vessel further. And if your people find us anyway? Jinho pressed. They will, Keleth said bluntly. But we will be ready. Jinho sighed, rubbing his temples. I guess I should get used to running for my life, huh? Before Keleth could respond, a rustling sound came from the bushes nearby. Both Jinho and Keleth froze, their eyes locked onto the source of the noise. Slowly, a figure emerged, a young woman dressed in hiking gear, her face pale with shock. What the hell is that? She whispered, pointing at Keleth. Jinho stood quickly, raising his hands in a gesture of peace. It's okay. We're not going to hurt you. The woman hesitated, clearly torn between curiosity and fear. Finally, she lowered her hand slightly. Is that an alien? Yes, Jinho admitted. And we need your help. After some convincing and a lot of awkward explanations, the woman introduced herself as Haiji. She was an environmental scientist conducting research in the area when she stumbled upon their camp. To Jinho's relief, she didn't run screaming into the woods. Instead, she listened intently as he explained their situation, occasionally glancing at Keleth with wide-eyed fascination. You're serious about this? Haiji asked, gesturing at the alien. Aliens? Spaceships? Hostile invaders? As crazy as it sounds? Yes, Jinho replied. We don't have much time. If you can help us, we'd really appreciate it. Haiji considered this for a moment, then nodded. All right, what do you need? Over the next few days, Haiji proved invaluable. Her knowledge of local resources helped them gather materials needed for repairs, and her scientific background allowed her to assist Jinho in understanding Keleth's technology. Together, they worked tirelessly, piecing together fragments of the damaged vessel and testing new configurations. Keleth, meanwhile, grew increasingly restless. Its movements became slower, and it spent long hours lying quietly under the shade of the trees. One evening, as Jinho and Haiji tinkered with the ship's energy core, Keleth let out a soft whimper. What's wrong? Jinho asked, rushing to its side. The time has come, Keleth said softly. The pups are near. Panic surged through Jinho now. Are you sure? Yes, Keleth replied, its voice strained. Prepare yourselves, Haiji joined, them her expression a mix of excitement and concern. What do we do? Stay close, Keleth instructed. Your presence will help. For hours, Jinho and Haiji stayed by Keleth's side, offering comfort and support as the alien labored. It was an exhausting process, both physically and emotionally draining. Finally, just as dawn broke over the horizon, Keleth let out a triumphant growl. 3 tiny pups lay curled against their mother, their furs shimmering faintly like miniature versions of Keleth. They blinked up at Jinho and Haiji with wide, curious eyes, completely unaware of the danger surrounding them. They're beautiful, Haiji murmured, smiling despite herself. They are strong, Keleth added proudly. They will carry our legacy. Jinho felt a lump rise in his throat. Despite everything, the chaos, the fear, the uncertainty, he couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. These fragile creatures represented hope, a bridge between worlds, but their moment of peace was short-lived. A sudden hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. Jinho looked up to see a sleek, black ship descending from the sky, its silhouette unmistakable against the rising sun. They found us, Jinho whispered, gripping Haiji's arm tightly. Keleth rose shakily, positioning itself protectively in front of the pups. Stay behind me, it commanded. The enemy leader stepped out of the ship, flanked by several other Their cold, calculating gazes swept over the scene, lingering on the newborn pups. You cannot keep running, Keleth, the leader growled. Surrender, or we will take them by force. Jinho clenched his fists, anger bubbling beneath the surface. Over my dead body, the leader smirked cruelly. That can be arranged. As tensions mounted, Jinho realized they were outmatched but not outsmarted. With Keleth weakened and the pups vulnerable, their only chance was to fight smart, not hard, and for the first time, he truly believed they could win. The forest clearing crackled with tension as the two groups faced off. On one side stood Keleth, its shimmering fur bristling protectively over the tiny pups nestled at its feet. Behind it, Jinho and Haiji stood shoulder to shoulder, their expressions determined despite the overwhelming odds. Across from them, the leader of the hostile Valyrians sneered, flanked by several of its sleek, menacing companions. You cannot win, the leader growled telepathically, its voice dripping with disdain. Hand over the offspring, and perhaps we will spare your lives. Jinho clenched his fists tighter, his heart pounding in his chest. You'll have to go through us first. Keleth stepped forward slightly, its glowing eyes locking onto the enemy leader. Leave this place. These pups are mine too, protect not yours to take. The leader let out a low, guttural laugh. Foolish. You've always been too soft, Keleth. That is why you were cast out. Cast out, Jinho whispered to Haiji, his brow furrowing in confusion. Hai-G shrugged, just as bewildered. But there was no time for questions. The standoff had reached a breaking point. Without warning, the enemy lunged forward, their movements swift and predatory. Keleth roared a deep resonant sound that echoed through the trees and positioned itself firmly between the attackers and the pups. Jinho and Haiji scrambled to act, using whatever makeshift weapons they had at hand. Sticks, rocks, and tools scavenged from the wreckage. Despite their crude arsenal, Jinho and Haiji fought with everything they had. They hurled debris at the invaders, distracting them long enough for Keleth to strike back with bursts of energy emitted from its shimmering coat. The forest erupted into chaos. Flashes of light illuminated the clearing as the two sides clashed fiercely, but it wasn't enough. The enemy's numbers were too great, and Keleth's strength was fading fast. Its golden glow dimmed noticeably with each passing moment, and the pups began whimpering softly behind it. We can't keep this up. Haiji shouted, dodging a swipe from one of the attackers. Her face was streaked with dirt and sweat, but her resolve never wavered. Jinho glanced around frantically, searching for anything that might turn the tide. His eyes landed on the damaged ship nearby, the same vessel they'd been repairing for days. An idea sparked in his mind. Haiji, he called out. Distract them. I've got a plan. What kind of plan? She yelled back narrowly. Avoiding another attack? Just trust me. Haiji nodded and redoubled her efforts, throwing rocks and shouting to draw the enemy's attention. Meanwhile, Jinho sprinted toward the ship, ducking under flying debris and narrowly avoiding capture. He reached the control panel and began frantically pressing buttons, praying the fragile systems would respond down inside the cockpit. Lights flickered weakly as power surged through the damaged circuits. Jinho gritted his teeth, focusing all his energy on activating the ship's last remaining function, the emergency beacon. Back in the clearing, Keleth was struggling to hold its ground. One of the attackers lunged at the pups, only to be intercepted by Haiji, who tackled it with surprising ferocity. Stay away from them, she screamed, her voice filled with defiance. Suddenly, a loud hum filled the air. Everyone froze, turning toward the source of the noise. The damaged ship began emitting a blinding beam of light, shooting straight into the sky like a flare. The signal pulsed rhythmically, visible even through the thick canopy of trees. What have you done? The enemy leader snarled, momentarily distracted. I've called for backup, Jinho replied, stepping out from behind the ship. His voice trembled slightly, but his stance was firm. If you don't leave now, you'll regret it. The leader hesitated, its glowing eyes narrowing suspiciously. Then, without warning, the hum of the beacon shifted a deeper, more resonant tone that seemed to reverberate through the very earth beneath their feet. From the distance came a new sound, the unmistakable roar of engines. A massive spacecraft descended from the sky, dwarfing the smaller black ships of the enemy. Its surface gleamed silver, adorned with intricate patterns that shimmered like liquid starlight. As it touched down gently in the clearing, a hatch opened, revealing a group of Valyrians unlike any Jinho or Haiji had seen before. These newcomers radiated calmness and authority, their fur a radiant white that seemed almost ethereal. At their center stood an elder Valyrian whose presence commanded immediate respect. It approached slowly, its glowing eyes scanning the scene before settling on Keleth. Keleth, the elder said, its telepathic voice warm yet stern. Has been many cycles since our paths crossed. Keleth bowed its head respectfully. Elder Zanara, I did not expect reinforcements. Zanara turned to the enemy leader, its expression hardening. Your actions here violate sacred laws. Stand down, or face judgment. The leader growled defiantly, but ultimately backed away, signaling its followers to retreat. With one final glare, they boarded their ships and disappeared into the sky. As the tension dissipated, Jinho slumped to the ground, relief washing over him. Beside him, Haiji collapsed onto her knees, laughing nervously. That was insane. Keleth nudged Jinho gently, its golden glow returning brighter than ever. You saved us, human. Thank you. Jinho shook his head, smiling faintly. We saved each other. In the days that followed, Zanara and her companions helped repair Keleth's vessel fully, ensuring it could safely return to space. They also marveled at the pups, treating them with reverence as if they carried some deeper significance. When asked about their future, Zanara simply smiled enigmatically before departing. Keleth approached Jinho and Haiji one last time. I owe you both a debt I cannot repay. Should you ever need aid, call upon my people. We will answer. Jin nodded, feeling a mix of sadness and gratitude. Take care of yourself and the pups. And you, humans, Keleth replied. May your stars guide you well. With that, the alien boarded its ship alongside Zanara and the others. As the vessel ascended into the sky, leaving behind a trail of shimmering light, Jinho and Haiji watched silently until it vanished from sight. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Finally, Haiji broke the silence. What happens now? Jinho looked at her, then back at the empty clearing where the ship had once stood. Now, we go home and maybe we tell someone else's story someday. Together, they walked away from the forest, carrying with them memories of an adventure that would forever change their lives. Somewhere among the stars, Keleth and its pups continued their journey, carrying a piece of humanity's courage with them.